What's up, everybody? Welcome to the I Am Mom Summit.
We are honored to be the first of many speakers of this event.
Yes.
We're so excited to be a part of this event. It's such an awesome group of speakers that has such an awesome mission. And the best part, in my opinion, is that it's completely free. So reminder that you can access these videos and these speeches anytime you want, and just register and you'll have access to all of them.
To introduce ourselves, I am Shawn Johnson East.
And I am Andrew East, Olympic gold medalist, Dancing with the Stars champion. And
You?
Oh, that's you? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I was like, what? Football player. I played in the NFL. We also have a daughter. Her name is Drew Hazel East. She is a year and a half. And then we have baby boy on the way due the end of July.
Yeah, we don't have names picked out yet.
No.
We would do this speech standing up, but there is about 1.5 foot height difference
Yes.
between us. So I don't know if Shawn would have made it in frame. So thank you so much for having us, though. Thank you for taking the time to join us. And today, Shawn and I just wanted to tell you that you're doing great, Mom.
You are. You are. And to any parents out there, you're doing a great job. For us, there are so many things we wanted to talk about. We're going to try to keep this really short, but for us, coming from our professional athletic backgrounds, I think the one thing that hits home with us is what's in the title: shame, judgment, failure. Because for us, being an Olympic gymnast and an NFL player, our entire lives centered around achieving perfection. And as you guys know, as a parent, there is no such thing. And coming to that realization took a while for us and a very rude awakening early on when we had our daughter. But I think it's a really important realization to come to and something to truly accept.
Yeah, I had a football coach tell me once that you have to make yourself comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I didn't know it at the time, but he was actually talking exclusively about parenting, I feel like.
Yes.
It is a consistent and constant battle of taking yourself outside your comfort zone, and you're always confronted with new challenges. And so we wanted to help encourage you by sharing why we have been challenged in thinking about parenting, not from a performance standpoint, but actually from just a love standpoint, which is really the only metric that matters when it comes to parenting.
Yeah, because I think when you focus on parenting as performance, you can get really wrapped up in comparisons and scores and milestones and kind of people's opinions. And for me, within gymnastics, my entire life was what's the word? Circled? I can't think of the word.
Centered?
Centered. There you go.
Is that
That was exactly pregnancy brain. Was centered around achieving a perfect 10. So no matter if I was in practice or competing, a judge's opinion of what my performance was like mattered so much to me. So then after having my daughter, I lived in this world where anybody's opinion of what I was doing mattered. Did I not put socks on her at the beach? Did I not put on enough sunscreen? Did I do this wrong or that? And I lived in a world of comparison where I felt like I was an utter failure every single day for my daughter. And it took a few months for us to kind of figure out that, in talking to our pediatrician and therapists and psychologists and a lot of friends that have babies, that it doesn't matter. I think intention with parenting is most important. And if you can kind of put away the judgments and the score and the criticism and understand that at the end of the day, if you're just trying to do what's best for your baby, that is all that matters.
Did you ever get a perfect 10, though?
I didn't.
You never did?
I did. Thanks for bringing it up. I got a 9.975, and I'm not bitter about it at all.
I feel like the very essence and the definition of what performance implies is that there's some outside standard or some judge or some metric that you're competing against. And it's hard not to have that perspective when it comes to parenting, especially when there's so many opinions out there who I feel like if there's ample anything in this world, if there's any ample resource in this world, it's people's opinions on how you should parent your kid.
Yes.
And so that being the case, it's always tempting to use those as metrics of oh my gosh, their kid's already walking, or their kid's already talking, or they eat certain amounts of food that my kid doesn't. Whatever it is, I feel like literally you could apply that to anything. And it's interesting when I think about my football career. I was a long snapper. Mm-hmm. You probably don't know what that is, but I worked with punters and kickers. I was the guy who threw the ball between my legs. And in that position, there is a very black and white definition of success. I either hit the punter on his right thigh and I hit the holder right where his hands were, and it was a success, or anything outside that was considered a failure. And so it took a long time to understand that that's not how parenting works. Like, the only standard that matters is, are you loving your child? Are you putting your child's interest as the top priority? And it leaves room for a lot of ambiguity and a lot of gray area, which is hard, because I feel like the temptation is always to have some type of metric that we want to compete against or live up to. But you have to have confidence in the fact that even if you're crying every single morning because parenting is hard, which I think
we've done.
I think that's our past 2 weeks.
Yeah. We're getting into the terrible twos.
That the standard is not how many smiles or giggles you get in a day. It's, do you love your child? Are you putting them first?
I think another, not to call yours cheesy, but another cheesy analogy here.
You just call my story
maybe
cheesy?
A little bit. It was cute. I'm going to do the same exact thing. Is at the Olympics, when I competed for the United States, my biggest competitor and my best friend and teammate is Nastia Lukin. We trained at different gyms. We were polar opposite gymnasts. We looked different. We had different style. We had polar opposite training programs. Things that I could do, she could never even attempt, and vice versa. Like, I still look at her performance and I'm like, I could never achieve that. And I think a takeaway from that with parenting is your 18-month-old is going to look, act, and be completely different than your best friend's 18-month-old. And your parenting style is going to be completely different than someone else's. And that's okay. You can still achieve massive success with your child in doing something completely different. I think that's something that really shocked Andrew and I when we first had Drew, our first kid, because you're just thrown into basically the ocean with no
lifeboat.
No, nothing.
I'm here to finish your sentence.
Thanks. But there's so many questions of, like, how do you feed them, and what bottles do you use? Do you use a bottle? Do you breastfeed? Do you use formula? There's a million questions that go unanswered. And if you ask any particular person, they have a very strong opinion as to what is right and what is wrong. And I think that was the hardest part for us, is as a parent, you have to go against the world and make your own judgment and your own decisions for your child. And whatever decision you land on is right for your child.
Yeah.
It might not be right for someone else, but that's okay.
So we gathered some words of encouragement here
Yes.
and wanted to share them with you. The first is, we want to let you know that you can be a good parent without being a perfect parent. And that's what we've been talking about the last little bit. But again, it's not about perfection. It's about love. Second is, even if they don't say it, our daughter doesn't talk yet. I can't wait until she does. But your kids love you.
Yes.
And I think that's important to keep in mind. At the end of the day, I feel like my goal as a dad is just to have my daughter understand that I love her, and ideally that she would love me back.
Yes.
And to know that, you know what, she does. She does love me. That's good to know. But also, you will fall apart. You'll do things wrong.
Yes.
And the important thing to take away there is that you have to learn how to forgive yourself. I'll never forget when we have a golden retriever named Nash. He'll probably barge in on us at some point. But we were super particular in what food we were feeding him. And I think it started off that grain-free food was the best for Nash. Because if you fed him grain-based food, they would develop heart conditions down the road. And then I remember, like, last year, there was a new study that came out that said, actually, grain-free food does more harm than good. And so we switched. And so there's always going to be new studies that come out about your kids, like whether bottle feeding at this age is too late or giving them this type of formula isn't good. Just know that you're going to make mistakes, but showing up and giving your best effort is the most important thing.
I think another really important thing to remember is to take care of yourself. I think as a mom in particular, you forget that, like, you're also a human being and you have needs of your own. And I think before kids, there's this universally known kind of just mindset of you can't succeed in life unless you first take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And people encourage therapy and health and wellness and activity and all these things. And then you have a kid and people are like, oh, no, your life needs to revolve around your child.
Yeah.
And even though it does, don't ever forget that you are a priority first. If you take care of yourself, the better in shape and health and mindset you are, the more likely you are to succeed in being a parent. And if you put everybody else before you, you're going to have a very hard time. And I learned that the hard way. It took me until Drew was at least one to like ask Andrew for help and be like, actually, can I take like an hour or two today to like take a nap and go work out and shower and like have time for myself? Just remember, it's very, very important. And it's okay.
You should do that more.
I know. I'm working on it.
Earlier, I said that it's important to always keep your child as the first priority, which I'm going to hold that to that. But built within that is the idea that in order to make your child the first priority, in the long run, in the long term, you have to take care of yourself, which is what Shawn was talking about.
Yes.
Also, it's okay to not always be madly in love with your child, I feel like. There's some times where I'm angry at Drew, frustrated at Drew. She's not understanding me. She's not doing what I need her to do. She's not learning the alphabet. I'll never forget, about 2 weeks into having Drew at home, I met Shawn in the kitchen. We were both crying. And she turned to me and said, oh my gosh, this is so hard.
Yeah.
And it's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows. But I believe that in life and marriage and parenting, there's peaks and valleys. And when you make it through tough valleys, it makes the peaks even that more enjoyable.
And
so
I think
you gotta get to the other side, and that's when the good stuff happens.
I think a quote people use with spouses a lot is, you will always love your child, but you don't always have to like them.
Well, you applying that to marriage too?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, you don't have to do it all. You don't have to do it all. This pertains to taking care of yourself, but ask for help. Shawn.
Yes, I know.
Let me just sit you down and lecture this real quick, because my gosh.
I will say, though, there's so much wrapped into that statement of you don't have to do it all. We live in a world of social media where every picture is so perfectly staged and edited. Don't ever forget that nobody has it all together. Even if you're looking at a picture of some celebrity who's cooking and cleaning and holding 7 babies that are happy and smiling and dressed and well-fed, yes, maybe that happened for a moment, but that's not reality. They have mistakes. They have trials and tribulations too. And don't ever forget that nobody has it all together, and you're not alone in that world.
You want 7 kids, though?
No.
Are you in for that?
No.
Asking for help means leaning on your community, which brings us to the second topic we want to discuss, which is judgment. Now, not everybody's opinion matters, but the people who are close to you, your family, your close group of friends, leaning on them for help and leaning on them for evaluation and criticism and critique sometimes can be really valuable.
Yes.
That's the whole idea of like an intentional community.
And relating that back to our professional athletics, it is smart to have a small community around you that you trust. I remember Andrew and I had a conversation early on with Drew, or not like with Drew, but about Drew, where we were saying, we were trying to decide between all of these massive topics of how to raise a kid. And everybody was very split in what was right and wrong, like I said earlier. And we said, okay, who's our community of people? And who are we going to choose to trust and kind of go with?
Yeah.
And if you have that community, lean on them, fall back on them, and trust them, because it's the only thing that can keep you sane. Anybody else outside of that community, let it go in one ear and out the other, which is so hard to do. But don't ever let their judgment of how you're deciding something for your child affect you, even though it's very hard.
Not to hash and rehash social media, but it is interesting that we live in a time where all these different cultural habits and people's lifestyles, people are projecting what their background is on other people, which is great. I'm a huge fan of unity. We should continue to increase that. But nobody knows Shawn's background and what Shawn's used to and who Shawn usually is expecting to take out the trash or close the cabinets, or all of these different patterns and lifestyle, idiosyncrasies that only Shawn and her family are familiar with, that make Shawn Shawn, Those are the people who are familiar with that, whose opinion matters. So that's important to keep in mind, that there is a group of people who can understand you and whose opinion is really valuable.
I think when you look at all of it, the failure, the judge, the shame, everything, all of like the negatives that come with parenting, unfortunately, it's all that like mom guilt and kind of fear of failure that kind of runs it, comes down to identity.
Yeah, 100%. Shawn and I have done a lot of research and listening in on identity, and it's easy. Every one of us lets someone else define who we are. And so as Christians, Shawn and I believe that that's based in God and who the Bible tells us we are, who we're fearfully and wonderfully made. We have a purpose. God has a plan for our life. And knowing that, as opposed to tying your identity to other people's opinions, it can be a really kind of confidence-building and life-changing realization to know that, oh my gosh, wait, I'm the son of a king. That makes me a prince. That makes my kid a prince. And that's something I think is really important and encouraging when I get frustrated or discouraged, just to hold on to that moving forward, you know?
Yeah, and I think when it comes to raising our daughter and then raising our son here soon, the one thing that I try to remember as a mom every single day is I have a conversation with her when we're going to bed, and I say the same exact thing. I say, Mommy and Daddy love you so much. Jesus loves you. And no matter how the day went, we always start new and we always talk about it. And I feel like, again, we live in a world that keeps such scorecards that we have to learn how to like brush it off and just say, you know what, every single day I'm going to try my hardest. I might not succeed for what my expectations and what my standards are, but that's okay. And as a parent, as a child, they're learning with us. We're learning with them. And it's just a constant journey.
Yeah. Keep the long-term picture in mind that you're going to have bad days, but 20 years from now, you're going to look back and remember the good times. So know that you are loved, that your child loves you. You're doing a great job.
Yes.
You're not going to be perfect all the time, but you're doing great, Mom.
Yes.
You're doing great.
You're doing a great job. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Hope we didn't ramble too much. But just know there's so much comedy in parenting. It never gets old and never gets any easier either. But thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Yeah. Be sure to tune in the rest of the speakers and enjoy the summit.